Welcome to the Edge of NFT, the podcast that brings you the top 1% of Web3 today and what will stand the test of time. We explore the nuts and bolts of the business side and also the human element of how Web3 is changing the way we interact with the things we love. This podcast is for the dreamers, disruptors, and doers who are pumped about this ecosystem and driving where it goes next.
And today's sponsored episode is very special. I'm here today with Miri Camacho and Josh Hardy of Holochain, the platform that delivers beyond the promises of blockchain by providing a lightweight, secure, and versatile framework for everyday distributed apps. Did I have that?
Yeah, that's right. Everyday distributed apps.
A lot going on in Holochain. Excited to unpack it with you both today. And I learned that Josh here is not in Josh DAO yet, which we're going to quickly resolve before the day is over. But let me share with our listeners your backgrounds, and then we'll get right into it. So Miri's a social scientist with a master's degree from the University of Chicago. Very used to cold climates. She boasts over 20 years of experience as a leader, founder, and executive in tech and telecom firms. She has also championed ethics in business communities and played a pivotal role in evolving distributed operations within organizations. Miri's advised numerous startups in strategy, funding, and product development. And with Holochain, Miri is driving the launch of innovative tech that delivers immense value in a rapidly changing world of social and political dynamics. And we'll talk more about this, but for those of you that haven't heard about Holochain, listen up. This is something you should know about. Holochain serves as a neutral territory for scalable coordination, a technology crucial for addressing global challenges and fostering thriving, regenerative, creative communities and economies. And it's a unique architecture that aligns with the ways individuals and processes operate, with a strong focus on individual agency and group context. Very relevant to the conversation today.
Wow. That was a lot of words. I think that was in my intro.
Yeah, there was a lot going on there. I don't think I stumbled though.
No, that was fabulous.
So love to always meet another Josh. Josh here is an Australian based in London. He's a Web3 builder and co-founder of Rain Protocol, a framework designed to make smart contracts more readable and writable. With a background in music and songwriting, he collaborates with digital artists in the Web3 space, merging creative and technical skills to drive innovation. And at the core, so everyone understands, Holochain is a P2P networked data integrity engine with broad applications including supply chain, value flow, accounting, and remote devices.
Wow, well done. Are we done?
Yeah, let's wrap. Well, there's a lot of fun stuff we can talk about, but first, what did I miss about Holochain? What do people need to know?
I think the basic, most easy thing that everybody needs to know is that Holochain is a framework for building distributed peer-to-peer applications, period. It's that simple. And we're talking about the applications that everybody uses every day, whether it's social media, messaging, anything, games, a lot of great things. So we talk about it as something that you can use for supply chain and value flows and all of that, and it very much is. But most people are starting out with prototypes and games and small applications, work applications, all sorts of things like that, that really make our lives a little bit more disintermediated from big tech.
Which is, I think, a really big topic today. I mean, it has been for several decades, right? So what's the backstory on Holochain? How did it start, and when did you get involved?
So the technical co-founders of Holochain are Arthur Brock and Eric Harris-Braun. And they created this, well, they've been working together for decades, really, or more than a decade. And they started with an idea of metacurrency. Arthur's background was in community currencies and really currency design. And when they came together to build Holochain, it was a small part of a much larger project that they're up to in the world, which is transforming basically the dynamics of how people interact digitally. With Holochain, the idea was, hey, the way we've done everything, it's fundamentally set up to favor those who are already in charge, those who have power, those who have money, those who are centralizing everything in technology. And in their minds, that kind of puts all the kind of wrong dynamics into society. And what they wanted to do was make sure that the tech we were using would enable the sort of society we wanted to live in.
Makes sense. So there are other distributed technology L1s, using blockchain, and some of them have had challenges with nodes and essentially centralization of decentralized governance, right? Like where you get these power struggles even within sort of the decentralized world. What's Holochain doing to sort of address that dynamic?
Well, first of all, Holochain's not a blockchain, and there's no native currency. So Holochain is a completely different beast, monster, I don't know, critter. We call it a lot of different things some days. But the idea is that there isn't one single holochain. Every application is its own holochain. And so there isn't this thing happening at the level of the network. You have nodes in an application. The only reason people are there is because they get value. Every application is running on the computers that basically the app is installed on. So they provide their own infrastructure for engaging. It's a very different model. It can interact well with a blockchain because it's using some of the same technical infrastructure, so same cryptographic libraries and things like that, which allow you to be able to bind and do interfaces with blockchains, but it's a very different set of infrastructure that you're playing with that you can create different kinds of apps with.
Yeah, it makes sense, and I'll ask you this question too, Josh, but what got you excited about Holochain in the first place and got you involved?
Sure. Well, I've been business partners with Arthur Brock for over 25 years in various businesses, and he's an amazing creator, and I've kind of found out about this one probably around 2015, 2016, right at the early stages. I don't think Holochain had actually been, even the first prototype had been built yet when I started working with the organization, which was not quite Holochain yet. And then we didn't incorporate until 2017, but I've been pretty much part of the gang since the early days. Yeah.
It's cool, and our show's been around for about 2 years, and a lot of our listeners, some of them are OGs, they've been in the space a long time, but a lot of folks have got into the space more recently, and I think it's great for them to be exposed to Holochain and sort of learn more about what sort of technologies out there in the world that might be relevant to what they're building. And Josh, would love to sort of know a little bit about your backstory and how sort of you intersected with Holochain as well.
Yeah, so I live in London, and I have been working on something called Rain Protocol, as you mentioned, and one of the founders of Rain Protocol is also a core developer on Holochain, David Meister, and so through him I met the Holochain guys, and then Mary wanted to experiment with how we could mix Holochain with blockchain technology, like with L1s, and so I came on to explore that space.
Cool,
Yeah.
And when was that?
That wasn't that long ago, that was 6 months ago.
Okay.
8 months ago? Yeah.
Well, in Web3, that's a couple years, right? So how's that going so far?
It's good. I mean, yeah, I wasn't a Holochain developer before. I don't know if I'd call myself a fully fledged one now, but I've definitely built something in Holochain, and I was able to onboard and get going. And so if there's any developers out there who want to try it, don't be scared. It's more intimidating. Maybe looks intimidating, but once you actually get into it, it's not too bad.
Cool. Well, I'm excited about what you're doing with that intersection with music. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but I sort of want to just sort of mark this day and moment in time, right? I flew in from LA with Audrey and our team, and you're here from abroad. We're at this event. I guess we're calling it the Funky Web3 NFT Third Space at Monroe. It's this really cool jazz bar that apparently had a roaring 80s, 90s party this weekend. Now it's a little bit more subdued, but intellectual. So what are we all doing here? What's going on, Mary?
Yeah, so this is a very strange time on a Monday. We basically came to San Francisco for a conference, and that was not meant to be. The conference could not happen. And so basically, last minute, we pulled this together, and it's just getting started. People are going to be arriving soon. But we just said, it's okay. When something changes, it's time for the community to step in and ensure something new is born. So we did that with an event here tonight, and we're going to have some fun. Lots of people are going to come together. get to know each other, network. All the things that are important about a conference anyway happen in the sides of the conference. They don't happen inside the panels. They don't happen inside the keynotes. They happen, in the hallways, and we all know that. So we're just participating that way.
Absolutely, and Edge of Company is honored to be a media partner. Thanks for having us here and making us part of this. And yeah, I would say the decentralization of our event was a really important thing that we did. We took it sort of another level this past year and had decentralized land grants for people from community to just have booths at our event, sort of supporting the locals. And then we also sort of really tried to cultivate a high vibration networking environment with live art and other things, because when you're watching a panel, you're not sort of co-creating, right? So you need a little bit of everything, and this is a critical part of it. So excited to do this with you both.
Fabulous. It's fun to be here.
So I think with that context, it'd be helpful to sort of dive into Holochain a little bit more, sort of the nuts and bolts of it, and then also talk about some of the use cases. So it's enabling decentralized solutions, and that includes new forms of currency, accounting, key management. Can you elaborate on some of these use cases?
Sure. Well, you can build almost anything with Holochain, but some of the ways that it was designed were specific for certain kinds of use cases. I would say that a couple of things that are the most important is that, you always have your private keys. Now, that's normal in crypto. That's not normal in centralized tech. It's a big problem with centralized tech. But we weren't, in building Holochain, we weren't just looking at blockchain. This was not, that was on our radar, but it wasn't the point for us. It's actually more at odds with centralized technologies, and how are people being controlled by those who kind of own the keys to the kingdom. That's how we kind of think about it. So key management's a big deal. And with Holochain, your keys are your own, and the first thing you do when you start an app basically is you're creating your agent key, and then from there you're basically signing onto the app to kind of create yes, this is me in this application space. And it's really important to the integrity, because then every interaction that you have with others, you get to validate the other people, the other peers on the application. So currency is a big deal, though, because we are not typically talked about in the currency space because we're not a token type of network.
Right.
But what you can build on Holochain is what we call a mutual credit currency, and this comes from some of those currency designs I was saying Arthur was very involved with creating back in other prior to Holochain. And what happens with mutual credit currencies is they actually are always going up and down. It's really like accounting. It's less like tokens. Tokens are, hey, we're going to mint a bunch of tokens, and they come out of where? Nothing.
I guess nothing, and then essentially the value is determined by the supply and demand and the tokenomics.
Right. Well, in a ledger that goes up and down that works like a accounting ledger, one side goes up, one side goes down. So in a mutual credit currency, it's always functioning more like accounting of something versus creation of something and then having it be supply and demand in the market.
Does that still...
It can have an effect, though.
Yeah. Does it still enable sort of multi-party stakeholders? In other words, it's not binary where there's just a buyer or a seller. There's you could have a more multifaceted economy.
Well, completely. And actually, what you do with with mutual credit currency is that you have rules about where can credit come from, how is credit, who can go negative, so to speak, in the currency is part of the rulemaking. So depending on what you're dealing with, in our case, with Holochain doesn't have a currency, but Holo, which is a for-profit company that the nonprofit foundation owns. Holo is a cloud hosting provider, and it needed a microcurrency to run the payments to cloud nodes, essentially. And so we've built HoloFuel, and this isn't released yet. This is still in alpha. It's still getting ready to be released.
But it's been a lot of work and time to get here. I remember hearing about HoloFuel, I want to say 6 or 9 months ago.
5 years ago.
Well, for me, it was 6 or 9 months ago. So I was a little late to the alpha, but not too late because it's not out yet.
That's right.
But you guys have been building for a while.
Yeah, we really have. And a lot of that build has been on Holochain, and some of that build has been on Holo, the platform. So with Holo, it required a currency, and that is also a mutual credit currency. The only folks, if you look at what kinds of accounts or what kinds of nodes get credit limits, not everybody does. Host nodes, because they're providing the service, basically, that's the asset value of the network. They're the ones that can have credit lines. So every mutual credit currency has a different design. It would be done for different purposes, but it works from a different premise, essentially, than the way that a lot of cryptocurrency works.
Cool. And I think it's worth sort of taking a pause and sort of looking at the concept of Web3. I would wager you all consider a Web3 company. I mean, broadly, I think we're all, and I heard a Twitter space about this yesterday. People are debating what is Web3 and where is it going. Fundamentally, some of what Web3 has been the last 2 years has worked, some hasn't. It's been an experiment. I see a lot of alignment in terms of what you're doing with Holo and Holochain and the concept of Web3. I'm curious if you're offended by my observation or if you agree.
Well, I think it's interesting. We probably don't define ourselves as a Web3 company, but we do think we're building part of the next web. And I say it that way on purpose because Web3 has become so tied up with blockchain, and that sometimes people think, well, if you're not doing it on blockchain, then it can't be Web3. And so we kind of think we're very aligned with what Web3 is about, but because we're not specifically trying to do blockchain technology, we're really trying to invent a new internet. And that there's a lot of partners in inventing a new internet right now. That's what a lot of us want.
And I would say that's what a lot of the Web3 community wants. So, Josh, you're shaking your head. You're
Nodding.
Yeah, just nodding affirmatively, not shaking negative. Yeah, we're not disagreeing on this topic yet. But you're new to Holochain, but you're not new to Web3. What's your perspective now that you kind of looked under the hood?
My perspective is that, and I've been saying this to Mary, I think a lot of dApps should have their front ends on Holochain, because a lot of dApps have the protocol will be on the blockchain. That's fine, that's decentralized, but the way you interact with it is often through a website, and those websites are centralized, and every other day you see like a front end gets hacked, someone, the password for the domain registrar gets hacked, and suddenly it gets pointed to a phishing site, and then people are losing their keys because they're signing transactions that aren't the ones they expected to be signing, and they're losing their money. So something like Holochain, where you can have a decentralized, self-hosted interaction with the blockchain, just makes total sense to me. I don't know why. Yeah, I feel like all dApps should be using Holochain or something like Holochain.
That's cool. Yeah. So I have a little bit of hoodie appreciation going on right now. Josh is rocking a hoodie that says freedom, research, and creativity. I've never heard those three words assembled in that way, but like it's a pretty powerful combination, and I think resonates with your perspective in all this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't write those words, but I saw them and I was like,
you were wearing this hoodie today for a particular reason.
I wear this hoodie all the time for the same reason, which is that I agree with it. It resonates with me,
Cool. It seems like a lot of what you're trying to do with Holochain is sort of mirror human-to-human natural interactions and experiences through technology. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Holochain is just fundamentally architected differently. I like to tell, when I explain it, I like to say that, every time that you're taking an action, it starts first locally, and then you sign cryptographically, everything that you do, and then it gets basically published into the distributed hash table. And that's where it's validated by peers. And that makes a big difference, because what it means is data starts here and then goes to a space that's shared. And you get to say how that's shared. And that really, really matters when it comes to thinking about how you architect an application. And what we found is that instead of having people just think about, oh, let me architect an application by describing my data, sometimes we have them go, tell me what the manual process is. Because you may want to mimic a manual process instead of kind of mimic the way that you would do it in, say, a centralized database application.
Like instead of thinking about how you do it with Oracle or a CRM system like PeopleSoft, you just go back to the pure basics of what exactly is happening between person A and person B.
That's right. What's in the room? Sometimes it's like out on the field. It's like we were on a campground one time talking to people about this, and it was just sort of like, what do? You write it here, then you take it to your friend, and then they do something with it, and then you take it to somebody else, and then they put their stamp on it. And like thinking about it in that more procedural human form helps you really understand how you might actually get something done in Holochain better.
You're bringing me back to like my former life as a management consultant, where we did like process flow diagrams.
Exactly.
Which I don't hear about them too often these days, but I think it was a really helpful process, especially working with organizations that do certain things over and over again, and they don't stop to like think about like the value chain and how they get from one point to another, and how to simplify that. Before, technology wasn't there, and they weren't sort of using X system to do that, right?
Exactly. But sometimes, the way that we've done it now, you just what a CRM is. It's this set of data, and it's this set of data against which you do, 3 different processes. And if you try to take that and model it in Holochain, it's really hard, because I can't tell you how difficult it is to break up that centralized concept of that data into pieces that people are in control of again. It's just a very different thing.
So we've talked about sort of the essence of Holochain and Holo, and sort of the analogy of Web3. So let's sort of get into the realm of NFTs, right, as well. And you have this recent collaboration with Fractal Tribute. Maybe you can kind of walk us through what that collaboration was all about, and sort of how that enables the use of blockchain for artists and creators?
Yeah, absolutely. So Josh and I created this together. Obviously, he did the development. I did not. Maybe it's not so obvious.
Well, I never...
I'm just going to say maybe it's not so obvious because I can code.
Yeah. I mean, everyone
just not as well as he does.
Well, everyone can code, especially with AI now, right?
That's for sure. So... but yeah, this actually started way back. I wanted to do a music app last year. That was this year in February. And I started thinking about what I wanted it to do, but it just wasn't going to happen. We weren't ready. We were just getting ready to get to beta on Holochain. But it was this idea about collaborative music in a live space, and maybe it could be some, creator NFTs that got created and then shared, and then maybe a concert thing. I don't know. It was like this big mix of, a lot of crazy ideas that didn't all flow together very well. Fast forward 4 months, 5 months, and I'm working with Josh on the Web3 prototypes, essentially. And another person who works for us, Alistair, in the company, he went and took a game that a developer that is also in our community had worked on, Damien, and combined it with some of Josh's NFT work that we were doing for the Web3 prototypes. And then suddenly we had basically an R place with making an NFT. And I was like, this is it. This is the collaborative art game. And so what we added on were a bunch of other parts and pieces to it. So basically we added on that it would be something that would have a marketplace internally, that you could buy the NFTs on the game itself, that the creators of the game would then have a fractal distribution of any funds that were collected. And so we basically took everything that Josh was doing with Rain Protocol, well, not everything, but a bit of what he was doing with the Rain Protocol, and some of the things that we were doing with Holochain Web3 prototypes, and we meshed it all together and made it a really fun game. And then
And that's what Tribute.
that's what Fractal Tribute is.
Fractal Tribute.
And then right as we were doing
And can I play this game today? Am I going to get to play it?
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right.
It's so let me just say a couple things, because we had an art collective called Dada work with us, which was so cool. They did all the testing for us, and they helped us like figure out what constraints to add and things like that and how it would flow. And anyway, it's running. It's an event-based game. So when we launch it, it launches for whatever amount of time we say. This one, we did it for 4 days. It ends tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Okay. So you have to play it today.
All right, I'm excited to check it out. Josh, anything to add to sort of the story here? What kind of gets you excited about this project?
I mean, the only thing I would maybe add is like how it feels to play it. So you download like an app. So it's a standalone app.
You download it on your computer?
Yeah, your laptop.
On your
yeah,
laptop.
yeah, and you install it, and once you open it, you're basically running a node in the network. So there's no server. So you basically start communicating with all the other people who have the game, anyone who has it open, and then they tell you what their current knowledge of the state of the game is, and that gets sent to your machine, and then it shows you the state of the board right now.
And there's no like vulnerabilities or security issues with this?
Well, this is a game.
It's a prototype. Yeah, it's still a prototype. I mean, in many ways, it's a showcase. We haven't hardened everything from a security perspective on it.
Fair enough.
But that's
You would if you
absolutely. We're the NFTs that are for sale on this marketplace are for 2 cents of Matic.
Got it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, anyway, so then
a lot of NFTs are for sale for 2 cents right now. So that's
the goal. The goal was not to try to make money, right? It was just to show that it's possible and what you can do. But yeah. Once you start playing, so far there's no blockchain. It's just literally people have copies of the game, and then you make a move, and then you sign it with your agent key, your Holochain agent key. And then you broadcast that to the network, and then other people see your move, and if it's valid according to like the rules of what a move can be, so it's like each move you can change up to 20 pixels, these are the colors, like this is the dimensions of the board. If it's valid, then that person can include it in their understanding, and then start broadcasting it to other people. So it's kind of like BitTorrent or something in that way, right?
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So where does this all go, Josh and Mary, in terms of like the integration potential with blockchain? I know that was sort of part of this experiment as well.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of different places. The thing that you didn't really talk about was the binding. Like immediately to play, you bind your EVM key to a Holochain key. So what that means is that everything that is being created for the NFT, it is unforgeable essentially. Only the person who is a creator in the game can create the NFT payload and the NFT that's on the blockchain. So because of that binding. And that's a really unique structure as far as we understand it. I mean, maybe.
Yeah. I think from the perspective of like NFTs, like obviously everyone knows that the NFT on chain is usually, unless it's an on-chain NFT, it's a pointer to something else, right? So it's usually a pointer to like a JPEG, and that JPEG might be on like IPFS or Arweave, like a decentralized storage network. In this case, it's a pointer to a move on the Holochain app. So it's better than just IPFS because the app is alive and the app can change and the app is dynamic and it's evolving in real time. And so we can have people minting NFTs which point to specific things on this evolving app which has its own rules. So you literally have 2 decentralized networks bound together in a way that's like much more powerful than what you could usually do with NFTs.
It's like crossing galaxies or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And also you don't have to pay gas on Holochain, right? So you get to have all of the fun stuff you could do on the Holochain side is gas-free. People don't have to pay to participate. They just pay when they go to mint something on chain.
I think there's a lot of people listening, that had very traditional constructs of Web3 and NFTs where they're sort of having to wrap their minds around this like you are. What's been the feedback from the beta community so far?
I mean, you can go to Fractal Tribute, fractal-tribute.com and see the things that people have created, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
People have gotten super creative and
like what's an example?
Oh, there's so much funny stuff. What have we seen? There's a Daffy Duck, there's a Snoopy, there's a Holo Duck.
Yeah, we have a joke about a Holoduck. So there's several Holoducks right now. One of them happens to be Daffy Duck. There's a lot of sweet messages up there. A lot of people celebrating Holo and Holochain. I mean,
High on Love.
Yeah, High on Love was a really good one. And then just a lot of great art. I mean, like people are just doing all this sort of like, I don't even know how to describe it, interesting shapes, geometric shapes, geometric art. I mean, yeah, they're collaborating. Or either that or they're fighting to get their thing drawn while somebody else is drawing on top of them.
I was gonna say, and what's cool is like when you go and you see all the snapshots, they're like snapshots in time of this thing that's evolved. So it's this continually evolving artwork, and it completely changes. Like you'll see like 50 completely different artworks, but at one point in time during the time of this game, there's how many hours it was, 5 days or whatever. That's like how it looked at one point in time. So yeah.
Very, very cool. Well, this is exciting, and it's an exciting time for Holochain. Obviously, there's a lot to unpack with what you guys are doing. This is just one example, right? But maybe you can kind of give us a little bit of a context on sort of the near-term roadmap and why people should pay attention to what you guys are doing, and why they should sort of take note, right? Like, our show really prides itself on covering the very edge of emerging tech, and I've been enamored with what you guys are doing since I met you and learned more about it, and excited for people to really understand what's going on here.
Yeah, I think it's like I can share things, but it's really almost too early to know how all Holochain will be used. It's so basic of an infrastructure for building applications that really anything people can think of almost can be built. Some things that we, have shared that, like even on that you can find right now that are actively available, are business applications, productivity applications. We've got versions of Kanban boards. We've got versions of like creativity sticky games. We've got versions of there's an app that you can find at acorn.software. It's like a project management, completely peer-to-peer project management dependency tree tool that can be used. But people are looking at using it in much bigger kinds of projects. We've had people talking about putting it in decentralized energy sensors. We've had people who are working up in space talking to us about like using it for communications from satellites.
I guess one thing that is one of your unique advantages, you don't have necessarily all the stigmas that are attached to Web3, due to unfortunate, circumstances, legitimate fraud in the space. At this point, hopefully we have one passage of time behind us with the verdict with SBF, but
right.
But I think from an enterprise perspective, you don't have necessarily the same stigmas, right?
Yeah, by not having a native currency in Holochain, that changes everything for certain kinds of use cases.
Right? And I talk to a lot of folks about different uses for decentralization and different purposes, and it sounds like for an enterprise there's some meaningful considerations around what you can offer that don't run into sort of the hacking issues, the sort of challenges that Ethereum based smart contracts sort of create, right?
I'll let Josh answer that one maybe.
Wait, what was the question? Sorry, can you?
Oh, just reflecting on maybe some of the advantages of Holochain relative to like smart contracts.
Well, for one, you don't have to pay gas, so you can build a whole different class of applications when you don't have to worry about everything you do costing the users money. Like that's probably the biggest thing. And also, it's not meant to be handling money, so there's not like obviously you can build a mutual credit currency if you want, but that's not like probably the main purpose of what you would use Holochain for. So therefore, you're not creating these like financial honeypots where you're inviting people to come and attempt to hack. So I just think it's a different. It's kind of a different landscape. Like there probably is going to be security considerations, of course, but it's going to look very different, I think, to what we've seen in the smart contracts world.
Yeah, I will add on to that the honeypot issue is really important because every application is its own separate network. You don't have any one place to go, even on chain. Like there's not like hacks are like you'd be hacking into an application that maybe 50 people are using, maybe 10 people are using. These things will vary, or it maybe is an application that 1 million people are using because you can scale these up. Remember that because they're installed on people's machines, as you add people, you actually get more capacity in Holochain. That's really one of the unique characteristics of it. So, and you don't have the issue of it getting over time something that kind of the nodes get larger and larger, the data set gets larger and larger. It's not quite like that. There are ways to upgrade even an application to kind of do archiving and things like that.
So when we think about the computing power required for AI, which is our other show, Edge of AI, and a lot of my friends are building an AI. We're in San Francisco, a lot of AI happening here. It requires a lot of scalability and computational power. It sounds like Holochain could offer that for AI application.
Well, from a distributed perspective, absolutely. And that's actually something that we're working to document and describe for folks in detail. We think that Holochain is an ideal potential solution for distributed model making. If you think about it, the data issue is always the problem with AI, right? And more, now that everybody knows how data models are created with all of our data that we've put out into the internet that we didn't realize was being used, the concern is going to how do we keep that data more private? So one of the architectures that is being looked at is how do you use data to train models, share the learnings, not the data, take those back, retest them, remix them, and then send it back to folks with data that they can keep doing kind of an aggregated sort of test model.
Yeah, appreciate all that, and this has been sort of fascinating, educational for me. Sounds like, to be fair, a lot of the building still to come and sort of framing up the future of sort of the new internet, and there will be challenges along the way.
Absolutely.
That will have to be resolved, but you guys are doing something exciting, so this is a fun conversation. So this is a fun part of the show now we call Edge Quick Hitters, and I think it's an opportune moment. So Edge Quick Hitters are a fun and quick way to get to know you a little better. I'm going to ask you 10 questions. We're going to be looking for a short, single or few word response, but feel free to expand if you get the urge. Sound good?
So if I don't want to answer, can I just give it to Josh?
Well, you're each going to get a chance to go first, so he'll have the upper hand sometimes, you'll have the upper hand sometimes.
All right.
But since you're a pro at this, we're gonna start with you, okay? All right. What is the first thing you remember ever purchasing in your life?
45 Donna Summers.
Okay, nice. So music?
Music.
All right. Josh, what about you?
Hubba Bubba. Chewing gum. Chewing gum, maybe.
There you go, yeah.
I think I stole coins from my parents and went and ran away to the shops and bought chewing gum.
Nice. Okay, so next question. What is the first thing you remember ever selling in your life?
That's more difficult. If you mean selling as in real money, I have no clue.
Could be a barter.
But when I was in grade school, I ran restaurants and I sold food that was not real. And I did a damn good job of it.
So you were in the virtual sales business at an early age.
Exactly.
That's why we asked the question. How interesting. Did you think about that?
I didn't ever think about
You've
that.
been a digital nomad, digital native forever.
Wow. What about you?
I made like a zine. It was like I called it a newsletter when I was like 7. And one of the things in the zine was it was a basic program, like basic programming language that you could type in.
He's always been a nerd.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
That's great. All right, so Josh, you don't get to pass the mic. You're first this time.
Okay.
What is the most recent thing you purchased?
It was a Boulevardier. A Negroni with whiskey.
All right. Good answer. And Mary, I guess you bought the open bar, but
Yeah.
Beyond that, any recent purchase that comes to mind?
Does it have to be? I mean, like everything I bought in the last 24 hours has been about this event, but is that what you're looking for?
If you want to share something else, that's fine.
Okay, personally, I found a really, really great San Francisco designer and bought a bunch of clothing on this trip.
Cool.
It was a lot of fun.
Cool. There's some really cool like boutiques here in San
Exactly.
Francisco. Food, clothing, all of the above. Nice. And Josh, what about? Did you answer? You answered that
I answered
question.
that.
All right.
It was a drink.
Okay.
He can start again.
Okay. You guys, I got tripped up. That doesn't rarely happens, but let's continue. What is the most recent thing you sold, Josh?
I can't remember.
I'm going to stick with personal. I sold a phone that I had purchased for my father that was not very good. And so I needed to buy him one that had a much better user interface.
A little bit bigger screen.
Bigger screen, better UI. And so we sold the other one.
I have the opposite problem. My mom is like so loyal to her old iPhone, and she doesn't want to upgrade. And I'm like, there's a whole world out there. She's like happy with the phone, so it was a lot to get her comfortable with it. So I get it.
Yeah.
All right. So next question for you, Mary. What is your most prized possession?
It's interesting. I think where I'd have to look is having moved across the ocean, what do I take with me? And the things that matter the most are my books and my art.
Any particular book or piece of art that comes to mind?
Yeah, I have a piece that I bought in Denver at a gallery that is like this gypsy woman. And it's almost like everybody thinks it's me when they come into my house, and it's not me. But it's like the alter ego me.
Nice. Josh?
I don't really have an attachment to any of my possessions. My most useful possession is my laptop. I definitely have known for a long time that is the most important possession I have. I don't know if I prize it.
What about your hoodie? You're pretty into your hoodie.
I do love this hoodie. Maybe that is my most prized possession. You know what? That actually might be true. Okay, maybe you answered it for me. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. This show is about letting people know themselves more. So Mary, if you could buy anything in the world, digital, physical, service, or experience that is currently for sale, what would it be?
An upgrade on my travel.
Yeah.
It's just I travel so much that it's just really hard to not want to be in a place where I can sleep.
So enough points to always have the sleeper seat.
That would be awesome.
I mean, yeah, or a private.
No, I couldn't do that. I'd feel too guilty.
Yeah.
No, just an upgrade.
Just an upgrade. If you could buy anything in the world, digital, physical, service, or experience is currently for sale, what would it be?
I really want to build a studio full of synths, but like all of the like old school, like all the vintage synths, like all the classics. What? Moogs, yeah, loads of Moogs. Like a CS80, like loads of just that's kind of my dream once I can afford it, if I.
All right, so Josh, you're gonna answer the next one first. Keeps wanting for the audio listeners. He keeps trying to pass the mic back to Mary and goes second. I see a trend. So if you could pass on one of your personality traits to the next generation, what would it be?
Openness.
Yeah, I've felt that in sort of the 5 hours that we've known each other. That qualifies.
Okay.
What about you, Mary?
I love Josh's openness. I think I just get shit done. And, sometimes that's all that's needed.
Yeah.
So I'll just stick with that.
So Mary and I talked about what we would do when the conference didn't happen on Thursday. And by Friday there was an event, and by Monday we hosted it, and here we are enjoying sort of the end of a very successful day. So
Exactly.
I get it. And Mary, if you could eliminate one of your personality traits for the next generation, what would it be?
That one is so hard and good. Probably that I don't give praise first.
To yourself or others or
Others.
both? Others.
Yeah, it's the eliminating that critique comes first. That's what I would eliminate.
A little bit more of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, like, where there's like good things on both sides of the sandwich, and then sort of the critique in the middle. You ever heard that analogy?
I've never heard that analogy, but that's interesting. I'll think on that one.
Yeah.
I think what would I not want to pass on? I think
Let me answer. You're too nice. You should just keep it all.
what?
You're very nice. You should keep everything.
What do you mean?
Like, pass it all on.
Oh. No.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good.
Josh is awesome.
Josh is gonna pass on being nice to the world. All right, so Mary, what did you do just before joining us on the podcast? This is a very literal situation.
A very literal. Well, I had lunch. I went to the office supply store to buy supplies for the event that we're at right
And
now.
you threw a party.
And we threw a party.
Yeah, which everyone really enjoyed, and I guess Josh, you were at the party. You built a game.
I built a game, yeah.
Yeah,
And just before this, I was drinking a spicy margarita.
there you go. And now the final question of this segment. I know you guys want this to keep going forever.
Of course.
Is what are you gonna be doing next after the podcast?
Well, I think there's a lot of for me, there were a lot of people that I met, and I think one of the things that I share quite easily is that I'm a little bit face blind. So there's actually just a follow-up routine to go through, like making sure that I connect with people, remember people. It's a struggle.
Yeah, try throwing a conference for thousands of people.
Yeah,
I get it. Face dysphoria, it's a real thing.
it really is. So yeah, something to just do some follow-up and to ground everything great that's happened today.
That's great. And Josh?
I'm going to go to Berlin on Thursday for a few days, and then I'm going to go to DevConnect in Istanbul, which I'm pretty excited about to continue these vibes.
Cool.
Yeah.
And tonight, you gonna be coding or just relaxing?
Relaxing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very
Hopefully
cool.
eating some food.
Very cool. Well, this was fun. Really enjoyed getting to know both of you better and having some time to learn about what you're both doing in sort of the emerging tech space. I guess, we like to sort of let folks know where they can go next to learn more about you and what you're up to. Josh, you can start first. Your Twitter handle, projects that you're working on.
Yeah, I mean, on Twitter, I'm high on hopium.
I like that.
Yeah. And I'm a recent member of Josh DAO, so if your name is also Josh, then you can catch me in Josh DAO.
Yeah. Josh is going to be
Yeah.
building out the technical infrastructure for Josh
Right.
DAO that we've been sorely
I
needing
think
for
some
a
sort
long
of
time.
I actually think we could do some sort of KYC integration where you have to verify your identity first.
Because you have to be a Josh.
You have to be a Josh.
Yeah, in a way that is
Yeah.
just enough information. But we've talked about this on the show, and I think this is what some of the power of decentralization is when you give your ID at the bar, you're giving a little bit of extra information that you don't need to give to someone that shouldn't have it, right? Because it
Right.
has, your address on that. I think the power of technology, and maybe, this relates to our earlier conversation on the show and with Josh DAO is how do we let people verify they're a Josh
Right.
with just enough information but not too much,
Yeah.
and not sort of expose that permanently. And I
This is a
think
big
that's
problem,
the
yeah.
beauty of this technology, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone's fully solved that yet, but I think people are working on it. Yeah.
All right. Well, we can solve it at Josh DAO.
Yeah, we can solve it, Josh. We'll start there. We'll start with Josh's and move
Sounds
out from
good.
there.
And Mary, there's a lot going on with Holochain. Where should people go to sort of start to dive down that rabbit hole?
Well, if you're a developer, go to developer.holochain.org. If you're looking to find out more as a project, holochain.org. Or you can always go to my LinkedIn, and I'm Mary F. Camacho on LinkedIn, or at Mary Camacho on Twitter, Telegram, everywhere. So easy to find.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. We've reached the outer edge at the edge of NFT for today. Thanks for exploring with us. We've got space for more adventures on the Starship, so invite your friends and recruit some cool strangers that will make this journey also much better. How? Go to Spotify or iTunes right now, rate us and say something awesome, then go to edgeofnft.com to dive further down the rabbit hole Look us up on all major social platforms by typing Edge of NFT with no space and start a fun conversation with us online. Lastly, be sure to tune in next time for more great NFT content. Thanks again for sharing this time with us today.
Pleasure.
Thank you.